From Trump supporter to Trump challenger, former Illinois Congressman Joe Walsh recently announced that he will take on the incumbent president in the 2020 Republican presidential primary. He joins former Massachusetts Governor William Weld in challenging President Trump. Walsh gained national attention in 2010 when he was elected to the House of Representatives as a member of the Tea Party. He served one term, lost his re-election bid, and until yesterday hosted a conservative radio talk show. And Joe Walsh joins us now. Thank you for being on the NewsHour.
Good to be with you, Judy.
So why are you running for president?
It's a difficult thing to say, but I think we have a president, I believe we have a president who's just unfit to be president. I have been hoping all year that a Republican would step up. I think it's important for the Republican Party. More importantly, I think it's important for the country. When I say something like that, Judy, it's a pretty serious charge. I think we have somebody in the White House who's unfit, somebody who lies virtually every time he opens his mouth, somebody who's so erratic right now, he's almost tweeting the country into a recession. I think it's a fairly urgent situation.
You were, though, in 2016, an enthusiastic supporter of his. What drew you to him in the first place?
The people who voted for Donald Trump were the same people who voted for me. And they're the same people, Judy, who listened to me on the radio. They were upset and angry about what's going on down at the border, about people in this country illegally. And the Republican Party generally was out of touch with that issue. Now, Trump touched that issue. He tapped that issue. That was a big issue to me and a lot of my listeners.
But what was it? Was that the main reason? It was immigration?
No, I think that was the biggest issue that got Donald Trump elected. It was one of the biggest issues that I was concerned about and that most of my listeners and voters were concerned about. But there was this sense, Judy, that the system was broken, and I agree. That's why I went to Congress in 2010. Both political parties kind of were broken. The whole political system had broke down, and people sent Trump to Washington to shake it up and, drain the swamp and all of that. The problem is all he's done is disrupt, and he hasn't done anything to fix.
But you stayed with him after he was elected president. You supported him for a number of months. What was it that you didn't see in the beginning that was there to you later?
Judy, this may sound odd, and if it is, I apologize. When I voted for Trump, I didn't love him. I didn't like him. He wasn't Hillary. I thought he was sort of a goof. I figured he'd hire a few good people and maybe a few good things would happen. When he first became president, I did the whole good Trump, bad Trump thing. When he did something that I thought was pretty good, I'd praise him, I'd criticize him when he didn't. It became apparent to me, Judy, that first year, again, that almost everything he said, he'd lie to the American people all the time. That really bothered me, no matter who your politics are. And then finally, at Helsinki last year, in July of 2018,
when he met with Vladimir Putin.
Judy, when he stood in front of the world and said, I believe that guy Putin and not my own people, I got ahead of myself with a tweet. To me, that was an act of disloyalty, and that was the final straw for me.
So what would change if Joe Walsh were elected president? What policy would be different under your presidency from the way it is under President Trump? Because you just said you agree with him on a number of
issues. It's interesting. So let's go back to the issue that got him elected. One of the issues I care most about, the border. He ran on that issue, as you know, because you report on it. The situation at our border now is a bigger mess than it was when he got elected. Why is that? Because all he talked about, Judy, was this wall, and Mexico is going to pay for it. He hasn't done anything at the border. We have a humane crisis right now at our border, people coming to claim asylum. That has nothing to do with a wall.
But you've said you would close the border. Would you be even tougher on people coming into this country than the president has been?
Certainly anybody trying to come into the country illegally, I'd be tougher.
Would you separate children from their parents at the border, as this administration has done?
No, and then so that's the second piece. People coming into the country illegally, there's got to be no exception. But people coming here to claim asylum, which is a legal thing to do, totally different group of people. And those people right now, and that's our biggest crisis at the border right now, those people have to be dealt with humanely and as quickly as we can deal with their asylum claims.
But as you know, the president wants to crack down on asylum claims. He wants many fewer. He wants those people to go back to the countries they came from while their asylum claims are pending.
Again, anybody around the world has the right to come here and claim asylum. Okay? It's our responsibility. This is a fundamental difference, Judy, with me and the president. It's our responsibility to hear those claims. Now, we do a lousy job now of doing that. We've got to devote the resources to deal with those a lot quicker.
Climate change. Where are you on climate change? Do you believe that humans have a role in it and that humans should be taking urgent action now to do something?
Yes to the former. On the urgent action, I don't know. Certainly on action. The first big step, Judy, is my party, the Republican Party, has to acknowledge it's an issue. It's a problem. This president won't, and in fact, I don't even think he understands the issue. So it would be an issue I think the Republican Party needs to get on board with and lead on.
But would you, for example, would you take steps that would make business very upset because it might cost jobs?
I'd be very careful. And I'm not trying to be vague, Judy. The first step is for a Republican president to acknowledge it's a problem, man is contributing to the problem, and then let's bring all the important people together, including business and businesses, and figure out things that need to be done. But before we do anything to impact the American economy, we've got to make sure we've got the accurate data.
What about gay rights, same-sex marriage? I'm jumping around because these are important
okay.
issues to many voters. Gay rights, same-sex marriage. This is an administration that has taken steps to, in many ways, crack down on and reduce benefits for people who allow some discrimination against people who happen to be gay. Where do you stand on that?
Same-sex marriage is the law of the land. That's the way it is, so we all accept it. When it comes to gay rights, and this administration has been very tough on transgenders and gays serving in the media, in the military. Absolutely, anybody who can qualify to serve in the military, gay, straight, or transgender should be able to serve.
Abortion, where do you stand?
I'm pro-life.
And you've said in the past, no exceptions, even when the life of the mother is at stake.
I'm pro-life without exception. That decision right there is between the mother and the doctor. I do believe that the whole Roe v. Wade issue may have to be dealt with, but I'm pro-life without exception.
Joe Walsh, you've made, as it's been reported, a number of controversial, even incendiary statements over the years. A radio talk show host, somebody who's been outspoken. You've apologized for a number of them in the last recent days and weeks. But when did you start to think some of these statements were wrong? And I just want to ask you, for example, you said President Obama is a Muslim. You've said that he was born outside the United States.
No, I never did say that.
Well, you sounded sympathetic to the birther. False statements that were out there.
Absolutely. And Judy, that's an important distinction. I never was part of the so-called birther movement, but you're right. On a number of occasions, I said Barack Obama is a Muslim. I wrote an op-ed in the New York Times about 2 weeks ago saying that President Trump is unfit, somebody should challenge him, and I apologized for the role I played in what I believe is helping to put an unfit con man in the White House. Judy, I went to Washington in 2010 to raise hell. I was part of that Tea Party class, and oftentimes in that fight, I let the policy fight become a personal fight. And I got involved in this whole, the demonization of my political opponents. I believe that helped lead to this president.
And when did you decide that was wrong?
A year or so after President Trump got elected. I'm only hesitating because after President Trump got elected and day by day, week by week, month by month went by, I looked at him and I listened to him and I thought, oh my God, is that what I sounded like back in the day? Is that what I sound like on the radio? In many ways, Judy, his election has been my road to Damascus moment, and I decided a year and a half ago that I was not going to engage in the personal destruction.
You've also said that you have the right to say that blacks are lazy.
Yeah. Not that I believe blacks are lazy.
But why would you even say that?
Well,
That
a big issue that I'm so passionate about is free speech. People being able to say what they want to say. Now,
But my question
again,
is, why would you even say that a group of Americans based on their race?
I could have said white people are lazy. I could have said
But you
whatever.
didn't. That's not what
No,
you said.
I know. But Judy, if you go through my 40,000 tweets, I did a pretty bad or horrible job of offending a lot of people. Look, I was a radio talk show host. I felt a big part of my job was to provoke and get people thinking about a number of issues. And again, oftentimes, I went over the line.
Do you believe that any minority in this country is lazy
No.
or should be discriminated against? I mean, you're
Gosh.
saying all your views have changed.
No. My views haven't changed, and I've never believed that. Certainly, some things that I've said have been pretty aggressive. But no. I mean, those aren't my views. That's just the way I, unfortunately, push the envelope too often.
Joe Walsh, running for president, running for the Republican nomination. Thank you.
Judy, thank you.